Hello, my name is Robert Clark, and I'm the Manager of Video Services here at Western Washington University. And we're about to talk about the difference between complex and simple video productions. First of all, let me say that in many cases, a complex video production or a simple video production is determined by the amount of time available between the start of the production and the requested finish date. In other words, if you have an infinite amount of time, you can have an infinite amount of complexity, and if you need something done right away, then maybe you don't get as much complexity. Maybe you end up dealing with something on a simpler basis and getting it quicker that way. So it's not like one is better than the other. But to give you an idea of what the different types are, I've strung together some video clips that we've produced here at Video Services, and this should help start the discussion towards what you may be looking for in your own productions. What follows is a sample of a complex video project that we did here at Video Services. This project is 4 minutes long and took maybe 8, maybe 10 hours of editing, all told, to put it together. But it is a nice piece and describes one of the professors in the biology department, David Scholl, and the work that he does.
I'm David Scholl. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Sciences at Huxley College of the Environment at Western Washington University. We're here in my lab in Bellingham, sitting next to my radon machine. As part of my research, I use radon as a tracer for studying the flow of water and air-sea exchange. My biggest research project at the moment is in the Bering Sea. The Bering Sea is a really great place to study the impacts of climate change. This is also an area where the economic impacts of climate change might become apparent. Over the last 30 years, satellite images of the Bering Sea indicate that the ice has been melting back earlier and earlier, and it doesn't extend nearly as far. And it turns out that that affects productivity. Productivity is the rate of food production that fuels the whole ecosystem. The Bering Sea, which sits between Alaska and Russia, also sits between the frozen Arctic and the ice-free North Pacific. So it's a transition zone. And in this zone, small changes in temperature can have dramatic effects on the ecosystem. I'm interested in understanding how those nutrients are recycled in the Bering Sea to sustain the productivity. And it appears to be changing with changing climate. Not only does the ice melt back earlier, but there are fewer animals that live in the sediments on the bottom of the Bering Sea. That's important because the algae that fuel the food web eventually die and sink to the bottom. And it's in the sediments where a lot of the nutrients are released back into the water. As nutrient supply changes, how does that affect the productivity, which ultimately leads to fish? The North Pacific Fishing Fleet, which fishes the Bering Sea, has a home port in Seattle. And that industry is extremely important to our economy, with about nearly $1 billion in salary and wages. And although the nutrients that I study may seem fairly far removed from halibut, there's a direct connection. It's the food chain. The nutrients fuel the productivity that leads to the most productive fishing area in the world. It's a huge economic resource, which is changing as temperatures warm.
So that was an example of a complex project. This was actually shown to the Washington State Legislature during an expo on universities in the state of Washington and the activities that they were doing at the time. Here's another example of a fairly complex project, which is a short little PSA for the Compass to Campus program on campus.
I'm a Compass Campus mentor because I want to make a difference.
Because someone believed in me.
Because I can apply in the field what I learn in the classroom.
Because I believe in every kid having a quality education.
Because these kids inspire me.
Because I wanted to make a difference in someone's life.
Because I want to encourage all kids to reach their full potential.
Because I enjoy making reading fun for my students.
Because I want to see every student of mine succeed.
Because every student deserves to have someone believe in them.
Come join us. Come join me in impacting the lives of local students.
In creating the future.
Come join me in creating positive change.
And together, we can make a difference one student at a time.
Come join me, because if you don't, who will?
This particular video took about 4 hours to edit, which is an even higher ratio than the David Scholl piece. In addition, it took maybe 4 different days, maybe 5, to get all the different students at different times at different locations. So the goal of any complex project is to plan it as much as possible ahead of time so that you can get a good understanding as to how much time and how much effort the project is going to take, and then base your availability or your resources and try to come up with a happy balance between the two. In contrast to the complex productions, we have 4 types of simpler productions. The first one is screen capturing, which is essentially what I'm doing right now. I'm using Camtasia software to record a chunk of my screen, which includes a PowerPoint slide, and I'm using a USB microphone to record the audio. This entire presentation, which is around 15 minutes long, has been recorded using this method. And it's taken me about an hour maybe to pull it all together, but part of that was learning the technology, so it would go much quicker as I got more familiar with how to use Camtasia. The second type of simple production is a TV studio production, which utilizes the special purpose-built room that we have on campus in Haggard Hall 113. The third type of production utilizes another special room that we have on campus, Miller Hall 56, which is a classroom set up with 4 robotic remote-controlled cameras that are used in conjunction with a video switcher and a direct feed from the podium to create multi-camera lectures, presentations, demonstrations within that room under more controlled conditions, better audio, better lighting, better sound, and more flexibility as far as the types of camera angles and the types of images that you're going to be recording. The final type is single camera recording, which is going out into the field with a camera, a wireless microphone, a tripod, and recording basically like a fly on the wall, whatever happens to be going on, whether, again, it's a presentation, demonstration, etc. Here's another video that we did in the studio this time with one of the Board of Trustees at Western, Dennis Madsen.
Good afternoon, fellow Vikings. I am humbled that I have this opportunity to join with you today in recognizing Western's greatest asset, its people. I particularly value this opportunity that we have to celebrate the extraordinary work of a group of our finest faculty and staff. Having served on Western's Board of Trustees for several years now, I continue to be impressed by the way your commitment and collaborative hard work has created a premier undergraduate-centered university for our students. Western has a reputation for being a welcoming and inviting campus community. That reputation is richly deserved and continues to be a reality every day because of your outstanding efforts to make it so. You are engaged in important work here at Western, enabling, encouraging, and living our mission. Your work with students creates a campus community of academic excellence and a passion for boundless learning and exploration.
This video is an example of how efficient TV studio production can be. Unlike the previous examples, where hours were spent in shooting and more hours were spent in editing, the amount of time in producing this particular video was very minimal. In other words, the trustee showed up, rehearsed his lines, read them off the teleprompter in 3 takes, and was out of the studio in a half an hour or less. And as far as editing goes, it may have taken another half an hour to edit and post. Let's compare the Dennis Mattson video to one that Video Services produced for Professor Jason Canoff in the College of Business. Professor Canoff created a series of 40 videos for his Management 311 class. Each of these videos was recorded in a lecture-style format in our multi-camera video conferencing room in Miller Hall 56, and then edited by myself and my student workers with the slides, graphics, and video clips as necessary.
So what we're doing now in this video is shifting our attention to move in this other direction toward intrinsic motivation, and then we'll continue on in the next segment when we talk about job satisfaction. So we've said previously that there are 2 types of motivation. There's extrinsic motivation, remember, that's tied to external factors, and intrinsic motivation that's tied to internal factors. So this is a review. And we've already looked at some of the benefits of extrinsic motivation and a lot of using extrinsic motivation and appealing to it as an employer. There's a lot of benefits. It's easy, it's immediate, people respond quickly and readily. It can build a certain kind of commitment, the continuance commitment, if the extrinsic motivators are high enough and robust enough. But we've also talked about the downsides, the Alfie Kohn article, the Dan Pink video, some of the things we talked about in class with the folly. All that stuff factors into some of the downsides of relying too heavily on extrinsic motivation.
So Professor Canoff used his class lecture notes as a guide along with the PowerPoint slides that he can see in the room himself and that we were using as a part of the video production to guide his discourse through the topics involved. Another type of video production that's very efficient is the single camera recording, which we do quite a bit of throughout the school year. These single camera recordings can be a lecture, a presentation, a demonstration, and can either be used in conjunction with text and graphics that are edited in after the fact, or shot and edited very minimally for immediate playback and distribution, either on YouTube or the campus media server or the reserves in the library. And so here's an example from the Huxley Speaker Series of such a production.
Today we have Dean Adams visiting us. I was just looking over his book that I think some of you may have been told about in Gigi's class and found it first couple pages actually echoed a remarkably similar story I had of being a 17-year-old at the helm of a boat and crashing into something and having a skipper, I think it was me he wanted to throw overboard.
Yeah?
Not just the book. Anyway, we're honored to have him here today to chat about halibut and halibut fishing management and some other things that tie in with that. I want to give you a cup.
Oh,
here.
thank you very much.
That's a very nice Huxley cup.
Appreciate it.
But I'll let you explain what you're here to tell us about today. And he's going to reserve a fair bit of time at the end for questions.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm Dean. And the best way for me to get you guys grounded in this story is to start with my history in fishing, which started in 1972. I was 15 years old and got a job on my uncle's halibut schooner. And, oh, here we go, this one. And it didn't take me very long to figure out that this was a very difficult job. I managed to stick with it despite the story that will come out in this book. I'm not going to go into the book at all, but I did. This is a PowerPoint presentation that I developed for University of Washington lecture. I've had it for quite a while, and this particular set of slides, and I was kind of surprised to find that this slide is in my original lecture. This is taken from a life raft, and at the end of my first fishing season, that's where I found myself.
So what we've seen are some examples of complex and simple productions. In summary, what you may notice is that complex productions are usually more visually interesting but require a lot more time and effort in shooting and editing. Simpler productions, on the other hand, while they may not be as flamboyant, can be produced much more quickly.